What's going on, everybody? TGIF. So, I wanted to go over real quick some things that I don't really talk about when it comes to, I talk about addiction and alcoholism and stop drinking and start living all the time. But I wanted to talk about something that alcoholics do to affect the people around them now. Because usually I just talk about the alcoholic and what it is, and it's a disease, and how my thought process has changed surrounding that. But there is another side to it, and I don't think it gets very much attention. So this is a source that is, co-founded by an alcoholic. Uh, as you can see, is updated not too recently, but at the same time, it's not completely out of date. It's not even a year old that it was last updated. But more specifically, and I had this issue in my experience with the alcoholic I lived with, and I know others do as well. When it comes to the blame game, alcoholics are professionals. They will blame anyone and everything but themselves when it comes to the predicaments that they find themselves in due to their own choices, right? And the reasons for that, surround a lot of it being embarrassing addictions. They get mortified by their actions and choices they make while they're under the influence. But for some reason, instead of admitting that the situation was fully on them, which actually can make it more embarrassing. So instead of taking ownership, they blame it on their condition and addiction. Or in this example, he said how or they say how their antidepressants interacted with the alcohol. Was the reason behind their actions, never, that they just have a problem with alcohol. They convince themselves and everyone around them that it's not their fault. It's too complex for it to just be the alcohol and them consuming it. It has to be something else. And a lot of that comes from them fearing change. A huge factor, never wanting to blame themselves for the situation they got into while drinking. If they admit they were responsible, that would mean something in their life would have to change. But they're not ready to stop drinking because they're still an alcoholic. Alcoholics in denial. Part of active addiction is denial, which means they don't recognize or they don't think they have a problem. So they see the addiction or whatever they're addicted to as the solution. Right. On the same note, this other link over here, I found very important. The link between narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, and alcoholism. So I do want to make it clear that even after reading this and 50 other just like it, I'm not saying, because there's no evidence for all narcissistics being alcoholics or every alcoholic being a narcissist. But if you read, so it tells you what an AUD is. If you read the similarities between those who are actually abusing a substance, that are actually really addicted to it, they do have they cross a lot of paths with the same behavior of a narcissist. I've defined it before, but this is what this source lists as alcohol use disorder. So AUD is the medical term for alcohol abuse or alcoholism. It's the inability to control alcohol intake despite negative social, health, financial, or other impacts, and growing dependence and tolerance on it. It also refers to when your body goes through withdrawal without alcohol. Narcissistics versus alcoholics. Narcissists, or people with NPD, may use alcohol to help them cope with the aspects of their disorder. Alcoholism, or AUD, may trigger someone to develop narcissistic traits. What is the narcissistic alcoholic? The narcissistic alcoholic, or alcoholic with narcissistic traits, has co-occurring narcissistic tendencies, or NPD and AUD. So they coincide, right? The narcissism and the alcoholism could become dependent on each other. It's not known for certain how likely someone has experienced both clinical disorders, but a meta-analysis of 16 studies found lifetime prevalence for alcohol use disorder and personality disorders is estimated at 38.9%. So it's over a third, excluding antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, which have an even higher estimated rates. So narcissism accompanying alcoholism isn't even the highest studied benchmark. They have other disorders that fit with alcoholism more so than narcissism, but it is prevalent. Overlapping traits. So narcissists and alcoholics share various traits. Both can be self-absorbed. The addiction to alcohol narrows their perspective until it's all about getting the alcohol. Having an exaggerated sense of self-entitlement. This may be to alcohol, to other people's alcohol, personal belongings, or their time and money. It's the I, me, my, right? Instead of it being ours or yours, it's mine. It's all mine. The house, the money, the car, the alcohol, you're mine. It's all mine. A lack of empathy for others. This is due to being consumed in the addiction. And they will show no shame in manipulating others to get what they want. Overt narcissists or classic narcissists have a larger-than-life, grandiose view of themselves. They often have difficulties with self-awareness and recognizing when they need help. That's the exact same as an alcoholic, right? I don't have a drinking problem. People with AUD can also be self-serving, experience grandiose thinking, and have trouble recognizing when it's time to seek help. Yeah, it's the same. Difficulty with diagnosis. The shared denial, lack of self-awareness, and refusal to take responsibility for one's actions may make the diagnostic process particularly challenging. It can also mean one disorder or both may go undiagnosed. So they might hit you or them, they might hit the addicted person with, oh, you're an alcoholic, but skip the, oh, you have whatever, personality disorder, whether it's narcissism or whatever. They might miss one, or they might tell them they're a narcissist without a drinking problem. Researchers have suggested that due to the link between personality disorders and alcohol abuse disorders, it is important for healthcare providers to screen for both disorders when one is present. So if you have any type of personality disorder, whether it's NPD, narcissism or whatever, they're also going to screen you for alcoholism, which I think is a good thing. And it's a good thing to be screened for all the other personality disorders, especially if you're an alcoholic. Overlapping signs and symptoms. Never-ending or insatiable need for drug of choice, attention, or alcohol, exaggerated sense of importance, avoiding certain emotions like shame or guilt, blaming others or shifting responsibility to someone else. That's a big one too. Destructive to self and others, mood swings, ongoing relationship troubles, breakups, makeups, empty or unfilled promises. Does one cause the other? The relationship between narcissism and alcoholism is far too complex to say either one causes either one. People with personality disorders have difficulties coping with daily stressors and may turn to alcohol to escape their feelings. The link between mental health conditions and substance misuse is strong. Several national surveys have found around half of the population with a mental illness or substance use disorder will experience the other. So that's pretty strong correlation. Personality plays a role too, even if absence of a clinical personality disorder. Personality is a contributing factor to whether or not someone is likely to develop an alcohol use disorder. So it's heavily prevalent and reliant on the person's personality, So if they are a severe narcissist, then the chances are pretty strong that they might become an alcoholic as well. A 2019 study of 345 college students, 28% male, 72% female, found both grandiose, overt, and vulnerable, covert forms of narcissism to be good predictors of alcohol use and alcohol-related problems. Overt narcissism is the stereotypically overly confident, vain, and arrogant type of narcissism. Covert narcissism is the introvert, victim role for attention, self-doubting type of narcissism. There also may be common environmental contributing factors for both. Trauma in childhood, sexual, physical, or emotional, living at home with a person with an alcohol use disorder or other addiction, living with someone with any mental illness, including narcissistic personality disorder. And I'm not going to go more further into it. It talks about what it is and engaging relapse and recovery. I went over that in my last video, where to find support and etc. But I do think it's important that it went over just a second ago, childhood trauma. I think people hang on to their childhood trauma depending upon how mild or severe it was for the rest of their lives in some cases. And you can't get anything right until you get your mind right, right? The what is the saying? The body achieves what the mind believes. And so if you're in a constant perpetual state of believing that nothing that you do is wrong because of some external force, then your mind isn't right. And there's nothing wrong with failing, but also if you don't stop trying to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish, you never really fail. But whenever you're an alcoholic or a narcissist, or both, or have something else that's related to those two, nothing can ever be your fault, because then you'd have to admit that you have a problem. And as everybody should know, the first step in the process of fixing a problem is recognizing there is one. So I will go over on my next video more of how this impacts people at home. What we actually go through whenever you're living with someone that's in this situation. Narcissists aside, the alcoholic or the person that's an addict. I've known lots of just addicts in general. Only a few alcoholics, maybe like between 10 and 20. But I've known plenty of people that were addicted to some stuff they shouldn't have been addicted to, and it affects them and everybody around them. And so I'll go over a little bit more of that in detail and cause and effect after I find some links. So get help. You deserve it. Everybody does. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. This probably won't be seen by anybody until Saturday or whatever, but it's Friday for me. So TGIF, stay blessed. Have a good weekend, everyone.